Game over, Dave. See you on our channel in 9 months.
This is recording right now.
This is recording right.
Wait, everything's going? I'm so nervous.
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah, and the way we edit anything could make it in. Hi guys. Here we all are.
I think this is the internet's fault.
Yeah.
Was it our fault? What do we take responsibility for?
Yeah.
Yes, I think the answer is yes.
I mean, it's happened like anything's happened. Like, I mean, actually, we kind of owe a big shout out truly to Paul and Morgan, because we probably wouldn't have made a video if they didn't come, because we weren't going to make a video. And then if we didn't react and y'all didn't react. And
If you've just got here and you don't know what's going on, once again, we aren't interested in recaps or explaining it. We are here with Bethany Bill from Girl Defined and her husband, Dave. Dave Defined.
Thanks for having us on. It's off on the shelf.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
for
us
having
over.
us in your home for an entire weekend.
Yeah, so we flew down to Texas yesterday. This is our first time doing anything like this. We've never traveled like this for
Work.
work.
You guys.
Yeah, this has been such a job, tedious job.
We've been filming and working so hard.
Look, you'll be doing this till your feet are bloody. Come on, we're getting the tape.
They just kept us attached to these little mics. Like, okay, wake up, put your mic on. Here we go.
Pushing down it back.
Yeah, film. I mean, the fact that y'all are here is really random and really crazy, because we don't really, like, Dave and I don't like film stuff and do stuff. And then the fact that like y'all like just like got the tickets. It's like, we should do this.
And very
Not here.
In a very
Like in the
non-refundable way.
office where Joe's like, yeah, come to Florida anytime. And Mike's like, I booked the tickets. Shall we just start throwing questions at you and see where this takes us?
Let's go.
I think the first question everyone probably has is just like, either individually or as a couple, just how's the deconstruction going, or how's the new dynamic of life or marriage or whatever going? Catch us up. How's it been feeling?
Since the big internet moments.
Nah,
Oh yeah.
I want you to go first. on
Really? But it's your
that.
I feel like it's your
100%.
deconstruction.
Is it? Or is
Yeah.
it our deconstruction? Go.
Dun, dun, dun.
We'll let the audience decide.
You decide.
New deconstruction
Tonight,
just
7
dropped.
p.m.
You go first.
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
Dave
all right,
first.
all right. How it's going? Well, after we made our video, where I admitted where I was at with the deconstruction, namely my doubts about faith, my crisis of faith, blah, 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 blah. Thousands of people have been through similar things. Our relationship took it was, I want to say destabilized, but it was kind of in this chaotic mode where we were having a lot of honest conversations, more honest than we've been, more honest than I've been. And so there was a difficulty to that, which I would say fell mostly on Bethany. I would say it's been in those early weeks, it was more difficult for Bethany. But there was also excitement about sort of putting that out. And so we had a lot of, it was very mixed. We would have difficult conversations where we were expressing to each other how we felt. And we would have exciting conversations or even listening to some of the reactions and kind of seeing like what was happening.
Yeah.
So, and then what happened next?
So like
Something
the video
happened because I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Yeah.
The last time we saw you was just your like reaction to everything related to the Paul and Morgan. And you guys seem like you're in such a beautiful, I mean, you still do, but you're in like such a beautiful spot. You had just kind of connected more deeply in this new way.
Yes.
Has it just been like an upward spiral since then?
Upward spiral. Okay, if the spiral's doing this, then yes, it's kind of
It's not
kind of
linear.
like that. Yeah, it's definitely more like waves,
Yeah.
and it kind of goes up and up and up. So I would say it's trending upward.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to skip the beginning because whatever's happened in the last month or so has been absolutely phenomenal. I don't exactly know what it is. I would describe it as just magic because I don't really want to know what it is. But I love it. And what it is like our hearts are opening to each other like they never have before, and we're just experiencing love in a way that we never have before. And that is in a lot of ways the beginning of the answer to my deep longing, which has been to get out of my own way and be able to have a relationship and not always be behind like a glass a wall. You know, I could be with the most amazing person in the world, which Bethany is amazing, and not be able to get relationally get past my own ego or my own fear. It's really fear. It's fear of being known and fear of and just as we've been opening up to each other, and I've been, we've both been opening our hearts. It's just like, oh, maybe this is love. Maybe this is what it feels like. And it's been amazing. I don't know how that all relates with the whole deconstruction thing.
Perfect, yeah.
Would it have happened anyway? I do not know. Do I want to know? I don't know.
I think we can all just say the proof is in the pudding. Look at your matchy today.
So matchy,
You
culty
didn't plan that.
matchy.
2020. I remember when we like didn't really think through the video that we posted, the reaction video. It was just kind of, I mean, we like, I don't know, the whole thing wasn't planned. It was like, it wasn't planned to do the video with Paul and Morgan, like really us two. It wasn't really planned for us to do like him to like share about his deconstruction. It all just kind of like happened.
Yeah.
So we were heading to a trip with his family in California, and like literally we like published the video and like got on an airplane.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and then like left.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of weird because publishing that video, it's like a lot of it became like real, like with his story. And so it was just that whole week felt kind of like, I think more difficult because we weren't at home, like in our like comfort zone. We were like in a new place, and now we have all these people who are like texting us and commenting and all these reaction videos, and it just felt like, what is happening in the world? Like, what is happening to everything? Just felt like a massive deal, and I'm in like some strange Airbnb house, like sleeping. So,
and I'm like, chaos is the only way things move forward.
We had one drive where we were out late, and the kids were sleeping in the back, and I just was like crying, and I'm like, my life sucks, you know?
Yeah.
Because it was just
My
hard.
life sucks.
My life sucks because it was just like so hard. But I had, like talked to another woman who like her husband went through deconstruction and she didn't. And she was like describing what it kind of was like for us, where for him, it was like this really exciting, freeing time. And for her, it's like this super scary, like intense time. And so it's like, you're going like as a married couple down this path, and one of you is like, wow, this is almost like so amazing, I'm on a high, and the other one's like, what is happening to my life, you know?
Yeah.
So getting like back from California was actually really helpful. I just felt like everything, I didn't feel like my whole life was like falling apart. It was like, oh, like no, we still have like our life here, like we still have our family, we still have our marriage, like we're not, it just like grounded our life, and that was super helpful. And so I think getting back from California, and since then it just seems like we've progressively like grown so much closer to one another in like really mind-blowing ways.
We became cats. We were dogs with no boundaries, and we became better differentiated cats.
We've been talking to him about cats.
It's been full cat dog discourse here.
I think it actually is true. Like I think there was a de-enmeshing that happened, and the more we de-enmesh and stand on our own 2 feet and come out each other and at life from a place of solidness internally, rather than in a state of dependence on the other person and their validation, it seems like love gets deeper and hearts are easier to open, because we're not just relying on the other person, like, open my heart, please, open my heart right now. We're actually taking ownership.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've been blown away by, is actually Bethany taking ownership over her own life and deciding how and when and to open her heart and take agency over her own. It's just, that's been so beautiful. It's extremely attractive to me, like that, solid based, integrity based living.
Yeah.
Which is not easy, because I mean, I imagine for you, it's like a very real grief realizing that someone you love doesn't have the same beliefs as you anymore. You have to like mourn the life that you sort of imagined through that lens. And I'm guessing that like comes in waves.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of like older mentors that I have that would be like, very much on like the Christian spectrum of things, but like a lot of what they've shared with me has been stuff that like we've both been like, like super agree with, and that's the way to like live. So some people have been like, oh my gosh, like just like this is so hard, and like the grieving and all of that, but like 2 specific older women, they've they're like a little more tough love, and they're more like whenever I talk with them or meet with them, I feel extremely encouraged and like very positive. Like the one mentor I meet with on a regular basis, she's like, you know, she was like, well, you've been through a lot with Girl Defined, and a lot of stuff has been said about you on the internet, so you're real tough. Like God's been preparing you. Like you, if anyone could handle like being in a different, like a marriage where you have like a different faith, like you can do it. Like she's been more like just as a from a Christian perspective, being like, God's like totally prepared you for this and equipped you for this. Like you're so perfect for this. Like, you know, she's just not like worried at all. So I often leave from being with her and just feel really like positive and, you know, like joyful and like, yeah, like I am equipped for this. Like I can do this. Like, and then a couple more things they've said. Like she specifically said to, you know, like squeeze every drop of joy out of every day. So like the reality is we really don't know if we have like tonight or tomorrow, you know, like not in like a morbid sense, but it's like that is the reality. And like a lot of us talk about that, but like, do we actually live that way, you know? And I think most people, wherever they stand on faith, want to live that way. And so she's just like, when I would have like a hard moment or something and we weren't meeting, but I would text her, she just always had more like tough love, like, yeah, well, you can't control things and you don't know what's going to happen. So just like basically enjoy the joy out of today as much as possible. And so that transition and like really waking up every day and really just like choosing Dave and even like choosing our kids and choosing our relationship and choosing the life we have, it's been like transformational. I'm gonna cry. Just because it's really sweet and like I know a lot of people like they don't really understand how it could be like so special and so like how much love I have for you. And like I guess it's just some people, you know, like, oh, like what's gonna happen to them? Are they gonna stay together? Or what's gonna, you know, like how could she be with someone who doesn't have the same faith? Like how can they even have a relationship? And it's just so hard to describe to people like how much I love him and how much like it's not just like a choice, like where you're forcing it, you know, it's like it's just so in this bra strap keeps coming off. I'm gonna lose my bra. It's just so beautiful. Like it really has been. Like I felt like a different person and like my heart has been so open and I've just had more joy and more like love in my heart towards him and just towards like life in general than I think I've like ever experienced. And it's just like it's so hard to describe. And it doesn't mean there aren't ups and downs, but I definitely wouldn't rewind and go back to a different place in our relationship where we did share the same faith. It's like even if we never share the same faith again, like the potential that we have in our relationship is just so beautiful. And like I wouldn't I just wouldn't trade it. So I mean, I never like it's not what I imagined and it's not what I thought, but I mean, the reality is there are a lot of people that share a lot of things in common that don't have like such a deep love for each other. And so, you know, it's like having such a deep love and such a deep connection. It's just like, oh, it's like just so amazing. And I think a lot of people don't actually ever get to experience that. And so the fact that I get to experience that with Dave and some of these hard things have pushed us to that. And we both want to become more open. We both want to love freely and choose to give in that way. It's created this and it's just been really special. So hopefully that's all my tears.
It's almost like we're so scared of having unknowns in relationships, but then when you actually are forced to kind of confront the unknown, that forces you to be present in every moment.
Sure.
So you actually are enjoying greater intimacy and because you're meeting each other fresh in every moment rather than through this like concept of who they are or the roles that you're playing.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Well, it's like you know, so many of the questions have been like surrounding the kids, like, well, what about like you don't share the same faith with the kids, or so much about like the future. And it's like so much fear about the future of what could happen that it's like you can't even be like it's like, oh, I just have no life anymore. Like I'm just like my life, you know, is gone. I just need to live in a perpetual state of fear.
Yeah, just like endlessly theorize what could happen in the future. How's that helpful? Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, if the day doesn't like his faith never changes, I stay the same, whatever. Like, but we have what we've shared recently. It's like, I mean, truly, what more could I ask for? You know?
It's almost like the dark night of the soul followed by a morning that you couldn't imagine, that I couldn't imagine. I really think that's kind of how life works. You know, you got to go through, you know, in order to get strong, you have to break down the muscles, you know, in order to build them back stronger. And just like, I think with relationships, it's the sort of thing like, you know, the breaking down is often that moment of honesty that is like, wow, I'm really disappointed right now because I was hoping you'd be this way, or I was hoping you'd respond to me this way or validate me or whatever. And then it turns into, I don't, whatever happens. It's like transmutation or something. Whatever happens from that moment into deeper intimacy. It's like that I don't know what that is. It just seems to work again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think of like, I don't know, like so many relationships where it's just like you're missing out on like every day because you're just so nitpicky about stupid stuff, you know? And it's just like, I don't know, like, okay, say we like share the same faith, but like every day I'm like taking you for granted, or you're taking me for granted, or we're just like, you know, stressed about other things. That's like we're missing the life we have anyway, you know? I mean, for me, obviously, like as a Christian, like I haven't like deconstructed in the sense of like I don't hold my faith anymore, like definitely certain ideas, and I am super excited and curious, and Dave sends me things and I listen to them or we read stuff together, and that's been really awesome, and I feel like I've grown a lot. But it's like, of course, like my hope is that someday we like land on the same page in some sense, like that'd be amazing, like I think. But it's also like I don't know, it's just amazing that you can be super, like I can be super happy and fulfilled and just so satisfied in a relationship, even if that never is the reality. So I don't know, it's just like this complicated, like
Yeah. But how beautiful to, even if you're not sharing the exact same perspective, the commitment to be by each other, to, you know, view the world together. And even though it may be different, you're like sharing that experience. And yeah, who knows, like where that leads. And as long as you're like committed to exploring that together and like learning together and being honest and authentic, like what else is there? Like wherever you are, whatever background, like, isn't that it?
yeah, I mean, that's something we've been working a lot on. Like that's one of the like the commitment plus the choosing.
Yeah, this was in within the last month, this has been one of the kind of biggest moments for me of realizing how to reconcile long-term commitment with choosing, because it's like a dialectic. If you know, if you commit and you say, I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life or till death do us part, that sort of thing, which is what we did. How can I then on a day-to-day basis say I choose to stay? Because it's like it becomes very easily a prison. It's like I'm a slave of that promise that I made when it's a bad day, you know? Maybe on a good day I'm like, yeah, you know, love that commitment. And then it's like, how do I have any agency left? How am I
past me, make a decision?
Yeah, 100%. And so that I've had to really work through that. And there was like a little doorway where you could do both, and that's what I found. And the more I start to talk about long-term commitment and with Bethany, the more she starts to talk about choosing on a day-to-day basis. So in a sense, Esther Perel talks about how if you take the we person and the I person, one of the people saying, you know, well, what do you want? Where's the I? And the other person is saying, well, where's the we? Where is the togetherness and all this? If you swap roles, often what will happen is the other person will begin to, you know, if you're a we person and you start to speak in the I terms, the other person may start to speak in the we terms. And that's what I've started to find, is that the more I speak in terms of long-term commitment, the more she talks about the choosing now. And the more I was speaking in terms of choosing now, she was thinking about, well, what about the long-term commitment? So it's like It's a really interesting dynamic.
Little dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my big question was, can I grow and be committed? Or do I have to think of life as more open? Like, you need to have your options open so that, so that you can grow. And growing is the number one thing. And I got to the point of like, can I actually continue to make long-term commitment and trust that I will not stop growing, and that this is actually a means, or the way. This is the way that I can never stop growing in this relationship. And that's what I believe. And that's a leap of faith. That's a leap of faith. I am looking towards the future and saying, this is what I choose. And I've told Bethany this. And then on a regular basis, there are a bunch of choices I can make and a bunch of choices she can make, because a lot of people who get married, they don't choose each other on a regular basis. They chose each other back then, and now they just have to stay married. And it's hell, because the choice on a regular basis is not there. So I want both. I want Bethany to be secure that I'm not going anywhere, and I want me to have the agency to be able to choose her every day. So that's like magic, be able to figure that out.
It's a weird one with marriage, because you've committed to be together forever, but technically you are free to leave any day.
Oh, yeah.
So you do get to choose each other.
But I can't leave without breaking a promise. So that's the one trade-off.
And we know Dave's
One thing
word.
about Dave, he's an integrity man.
Aspiring. But
Integrity defined over here this weekend.
that changed my mind. That challenged me. It really challenged me. Like, yes, I can leave, but I can't leave and keep a promise. So either I keep a promise or I leave. I can't have both. So ultimately, in no case do I have complete freedom. It's impossible.
This is getting we're going to touch on some really philosophical points here.
It's impossible. Yeah.
Love and freedom.
Yeah.
And all that.
If I think, to be free, I need to be able to leave. Well, that's to say, if I leave, I'm not free to keep my promise anymore. It's done. And I think that's life. That's why when I do something, it's like it becomes reality, and I can't go back and undo that. I can never unsay the things that I've said to Bethany. I don't have that freedom. I don't have that freedom to unsay things. So it's so interesting to think in terms, because I love freedom. I love the idea of freedom. It's like, freedom is what I want. I want freedom, internal freedom mostly. But you constantly, when I want internal freedom, I'm like, okay, how do I get it? Okay, what are the external things that I need to change in order to be free? Okay, do I need to say no to this, not have this commitment, have that, and realizing freedom is more complicated than that. And what am I free for? Yeah, what am I free for? Like I'm obviously, if I leave Bethany, I'm not free to love her in the way that I would in context of commitment. There's like in
an insane hypothetical where you guys weren't working, the most loving, like leaving could be an act of love, if you know what I'm saying.
Conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, like I do believe that. So it would, but right now the way you want to love her is I think, because I think ultimately love is like wanting what's best for each other, and you choose what's best for each other.
That's a good point.
If you became not what's best for each other, it could be an act of greater, more real love rather than conceptual love to leave.
I think I wouldn't necessarily rate the love. Like I think you could totally, be free, little bird, you must grow without me. I think that could be you could do that with altruism and all this, but again, it does come at the cost of something else, and it always does. That's just how life works. So I'm not necessarily making a greater or less than value judgment about which would be better. Right. I'm saying that this is what I choose.
Because you can only do that for the moment that you're currently in. So to extrapolate into like a future scenario, that's like not real,
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is thinking about vows. Like we reread our vows the other day, and thinking about what's in the vows. Like, we're not just promising to stay together. We're promising a type of quality that we're going to bring to the relationship. And again, in many marriages, it's like that's just ignored.
Yeah.
It's like all you have to do is stay together, and you're together for 50 years and you've died on the inside,
We did it. Get our
Yeah.
certificate.
and you get your 50 and you're like, whoa, what a marriage. Let's celebrate that. No, they die.
Yeah, I'm like, you sacrificed
You
love
sacrifice, yeah,
for the
100%.
concept of that.
And in that case, I think it'd be better for people to end the relationship
Yeah.
rather than stay in a living hell for 50 years, you know? And I'm both are not ideal, but it's like if you have to pick one, you know, torturing your spouse for 50 years is not, and staying together is not something to celebrate. I listened to this one book that was talking about variety of experience, breadth of experience versus depth of experience. And this guy had a lot of breadth of experience. He traveled all over the place. He slept with a lot of different people. He had a lot of different experiences. And now later in life, you know, in his 30s or whatever, he's traded the breadth of experience for, you know, things that he probably wouldn't have thought before. This is just what I want, you know, marriage, like living in a specific location, committing to live in, you know, a city, and not move around all the time. And he's saying that there's this depth of experience that actually is impossible to experience when breadth is the goal. You know, I just don't want to be tied down. Once you get tied down, there is, for better or worse, something that cannot be experienced when the focus is on breadth.
I mean, I think that was that moment that you talked about, kind of like that understanding of like commitment and choosing. I feel like that was kind of a turning point where our relationship got so much deeper.
Yeah.
Like that was really it. I think I understood, like for the first time, which it just seems like so obvious, but like the daily choosing and like how amazing that is, you know? And I think I just always thought so much in terms of commitment, which for me, like as a Christian, I have like my own perspective of marriage and, you know, divorce and commitment and love. And so I think I still come from that perspective, but like better understanding the beauty in choosing each other every single day. And just that's like what makes the relationship come alive so much. It's not just like the one commitment, which is what a lot of people do. And then they just like focus on their kids or whatever. And then they like hate each other, you know, and it's like neither of us want that. And so it's been really cool to see both of us, like we're both committed to growing. We're both committed to being challenged. And it's for me securing to know, which oh no. We had this super sweet moment because like for me, I didn't want to like, we have different perspectives on things. And like, I don't think there's a lot of benefit in like nagging or being like, you need to do these things. And so it's, for me, of course, like he's kind of bringing these things up and it's like, what? This is kind of like, you know, scary, whatever. And we had this super sweet moment, which in some ways was like even sweeter than our wedding day, because I feel like we know ourselves and like know each other so much more. We're just like randomly on his own. He just like basically did this like recommitment of our marriage vows and just like said all these super sweet things and just expressing his commitment. But then really talking about how not only is he committed to me for life, but how he's committed to like choosing me every day. And it was just like one of those moments that's like ingrained in your mind and you're like, it was just so special. And we were in like parked in front of a restaurant and we were about to eat lunch and it was so random. We were like about to go eat chicken. And but it was just so special. And it was something that like I'd never asked him to do, you know, like I didn't ask him to do that. I wasn't pressuring him to do that. He just like worked it out and came up with this idea of like you can choose commitment and make that choice every single day and it can be like really beautiful.
One of my big thoughts in that moment was, what does Bethany deserve in this relationship? Because I thought a lot about what I want in the relationship, but does she deserve to have security, to actually be able to think about our relationship and not worry about me just booking at some point? And it's like, do I deserve to be able to leave at any time? I was like, well, maybe not, whatever. That's just a thought. That's a thought. Okay. But what do I actually want for her? And I imagined like, I want this woman to have this security. I want her to have this. And not only do I want her to have this, I can actually give this to her. And I have the freedom to give this to her. So it subverted the whole idea of freedom for me. Like I'm actually free to give her my full commitment till death do us part. And what I really struggled with before that moment was, can I actually do this and hold on to my integrity? Go figure. And that I came to the point where, yes, I can actually do this. And it's a leap of faith.
There's like so much that's heaped upon us. Just any human being coming out of any society, any culture, there's so many things that you just do out of obligation because you're growing up and this is just the way that it is. And in any tradition, I think just in individuating, in the growing up, there comes a point where we have to make the conscious choice for ourselves of what we are deciding. Even if it's stuff that was handed to us, we get to like reevaluate and say, do I actually want this? And I think it's really important to make that conscious effort of, this is what I am choosing. Now, having all the information available, knowing that I have the options and the freedom, what is actually going to be the best? And that's for relationships, that's for choosing our morality, anything. It's like, and beautiful to see it happening.
Yeah, it starts out kind of assumed, right? Yeah. Oh, we're going to do this and we're going to get married and stuff. The reason why it's more meaningful 5 years in is because we know what it means more than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is that you assume your morality from wherever you're brought up. And yeah, that coming to figure out what I am committed to myself is very powerful, and typically I think sets the course for the rest of somebody's life. There are often those pivotal moments, and then they do change, but probably less than before and after that moment.
I mean, we always grow in our relationship a lot when things kind of get chaotic and stuff. So I'm like, can we not have any chaos for a minute? I'm still growing. Like, just give me a minute.
I just do things. Yeah. I think in terms of like, if I'm feeling stagnant, I'm like, what can we do to shake things up here? Okay, I have this bit of honesty I haven't had. I'll go ahead and share that, and then it reforms into something stronger.
Make scrupulosity work for you.
Got OCD.
How are you two doing in terms of, do you have to avoid specific conversations, or have you sort of figured out a system for how to like navigate, because before you mentioned how there were certain topics you would avoid, and it sounds like now you're both able to sort of bring each of your truths to the table and have it be allowed. But on a daily basis, are there things that work for you in terms of not overly triggering each other, or just kind of curious?
I don't want to bring unnecessary suffering into Bethany's life. So she's able to express things, and I can just like turn the dials a little bit, the adjustments. Okay, I'll try not to say that. I'll try not to do that. And that's just like my way of, of respecting her, is that too vague?
Well, I mean, I guess in any relationship, you don't have to say every single thing that pops into your head. It's going to be like kind of a roller coaster, like, so I think there's a way, like any relationship, you just have to have like some common sense,
Don't be an idiot. Yeah, change my life.
That's kind of it. So I think in that way, we're like learning, I think like, being close and in Christian terms, like being one doesn't mean you have to share every single thing. Like that might like destroy some like intimacy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like you don't have to be everything to each other, so that's been super helpful, just like knowing that more. But also, I mean, I feel like we have more honesty and more ability to share truthfully how we feel and what we think. I mean, there's no, like when it comes to like faith stuff, we'll talk about like anything. Like it's not a like sore subject at all, like we're both curious and what each other are learning, and it's always fascinating. I'm super fascinated with what he's learning,
and I'm super fascinated with her Christian faith, because like, I've been with her, but I feel like I'm almost like an observer at this point. I'm really interested not only hers, but other friends that I know. I really want to know, like, what does this mean to you? Because I know what it did or didn't mean to me. Yeah. But I really want to know how this works out in your own life, apart from just the sort of, metaphysical beliefs, God exists, whatever. It's like, how does this actually physically in reality in your day-to-day life work? And seeing that in Bethany, and asking her about that. Like, does this come from Christianity? Does this come from your faith? Or does this just come from like, would you be this way anyway? You know, is Christianity helping to construct this amazing character you seem to be having, or would you be like this anyway? You know, it's like, I want to know, and I don't know the answer, and I don't.
Because there is no Bethany without Christianity. So like, would you be like this anyway? Is like a
moot question,
yeah.
like
It can't be asked.
And yet I ask it.
Yet you continue to doggedly ask it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm curious. Sue me. Yeah, it's yeah, I wonder that a lot. It's like, hey, they're decent people, unbelievers. How'd they work that one out? You know.
Yeah, thinking of our faith and our conversations around stuff like that, I think because we're both really curious and less, for me especially, afraid of ideas that are different. I think for me, I've been afraid of like, oh, like, no, you can't read about that or learn that because then you'll just like lose everything, you know? And it's like, oh no, I'm like, wow, am I really that like fragile, you know? Like, oh, I can think and be thoughtful and read stuff and listen to stuff. And it's okay to be challenged, because if something's challenging you and you're like, wait, that might not be true, like, well, that's probably a good thing, you know? And so getting rid of the fear and stepping into these conversations more. And you know, sometimes he sends me stuff and I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. Send me the basic one version, you know?
TLDR.
Yeah. But it's actually been really, really interesting. And, you know, I'm listening to books that you probably listened to like 3 years ago, or, you know, audiobooks or whatever, but it's really helpful. And some stuff I'm like, how have I never really thought about that? You know, like how have I just never really dug into some of this and just kind of always had one perspective, and he brings stuff up and I'm like, that's actually a really good question. And I don't have to be afraid of it, because it's like, I believe the truth is out there. And so it's like, I don't have to be afraid of, you know, finding the truth, because I think there's like one truth in a lot of these areas. And so it's just very freeing to not live in fear and to not be afraid. And I think in our relationship that helps a lot, because it's like, we can just be curious and it's not a threat. When it comes to like this stuff on marriage, these ideas, particularly like with that, he sent me like little clips on like YouTube from like Esther Perel talking specifically about that stuff, which has been super helpful. I mean, it's like stuff with marriage. There have been people like we've told y'all about, even though she's Mormon, which is really random, but the ideas have been very helpful and like very freeing. Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife. And so it's, for me, even like, though there's still like a religious aspect of it, it's just really been helpful. So there's a course called The Art of Desire, and I feel like that one in particularly has been, I think the best word is like empowering. I don't know. Like I mean, it's just been really awesome. Like I've just found so much more freedom and so much more connected to who I am, like as an individual, in ways that have kind of been lost in Christianity. But I think it's very much like you can be a Christian and be very, hopefully, whatever, like connected to yourself. And so that's been like super transformational for like us in our marriage, because, you know, it's nice to have a wife like that. But
like a woman, like a woman who knows and is capable of choosing and desiring for herself, not just for being an object of desire for somebody else. And the cultural narratives around sexuality have largely been, you know, in the United States, and definitely in religious contexts, women are there to serve men and their sexuality. Women are almost like asexual, desireless. They're just sort of objects of like beauty and desire for men. And deconstructing all of that is, and putting, you know, awakening to the sense of agency and the sense of power around one's own sexuality is like insane. It seems to be like changing everything.
what's the name of the podcast that you sent me where it's like the debates, the two conversations?
Oh, they're Bart Ehrman and Peter Williams. Or are you talking about?
It's like the two different like they always have like there's
a
moderator. And
so there's a guy, Justin Brierley, who has he's a Christian, and he's been talking to, you know, atheists and Christians for years and years, and he has two perspectives typically come on his show. I think it's called Unbelievable. And so he's had Bart Ehrman on, you know, plenty of times, and he's had different biblical scholars like Peter J. Williams and Richard Bauckham and and others, and they'll, share differing perspectives about, the plausibility of the resurrection accounts, the Gospels as eyewitness testimony versus more of a oral tradition. How much has the New Testament been changed by scribes, well-meaning or otherwise? And so you just get differing perspectives. Bart Ehrman, as you know, Bart Ehrman is not a believer, used to be, and I respect him a lot. He has a lot of interesting things to say. And so he presents, I think, a really great perspective on the side of, I would say, skepticism towards the claims of Christianity. Yeah, so that show's kind of good. Yeah, and as a Christian, it's a great show for me to send Bethany, because the host is Christian, and it's a safe place to.
Well, I think it's helpful to they bring on two really experts, or whoever they are, and so it's really helpful to kind of have the debate over one question or one topic, kind of going back and forth and being like, oh, that's what people think, or that's what I think there is this idea around deconstruction that I think I have for sure, oh, if you want to, if you deconstruct, it's just because you just want to do whatever you want to do, and you're not really thinking about things. And I think there are some people like that. I'm just done with Christianity.
I'm a little like that.
And that's your right, Dave.
It's my right, my birthright to do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
But seeing how much he's not just being he's very thoughtful about all of this, and he's very like studying and reading a ton, and so I respect that a lot. And
meeting with pastors, I'm like, bring me all the best pastors. I've met with quite a few people at this point. I love it.
I think a lot of our audience relate to that.
Love it. It's so cool. Before it was a different perspective. It's oh, I wouldn't really want to talk to someone like that. It's because they might know something I don't. And now it's kind of bring me the perspectives.
Yeah, you are hungry.
Let's sit down. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because from the Christian perspective, at least people that I've talked to, there's almost well, there is a sense of grieving or mourning or whatever the life you thought you were gonna have or whatever. But there's also, it's been strange for me, people almost grieving my life is this, it's the end, or even as a Christian, them grieving oh, Dave is done, there's just, this is it, but I'm as a Christian, if you really believe that the Bible is true, if you really believe that Jesus is who he says he is, wouldn't he have the power to bring someone back to himself if that's the truth? And so for me, it's I don't have to worry about this stuff, I do believe it's true, and as I study and stuff, it's well, if Jesus is who he says he is, I don't have to be convincing him. It's it would be Jesus who brought him back to him. Me meeting with she's basically just a mentor at this point, but she's older, and she's the one that helps me with a lot of those perspectives, because when I talk with other very kind Christian people who are just oh, we're just grieving with you constantly, and this, it's just, I'm that, thank you for your sorrows, but really, I don't know, I just think if you really believe your Christian faith is what it is, then God is big enough. And so for me, it's that may be well, nice, that brings you comfort, but it's it does, it does bring me hope, and also knowing the truth, I don't have to be afraid of to look for the truth, because if I really believe that this is the truth, then it will prove in the end. And if not, well, then I better be looking, So I just think that we don't have to be afraid, but also for Christians particularly, how big is the God you're trusting, or is it just, oh, he's trustworthy as long as, everything, but as soon as things go different, actually he's really small, it's I don't understand that. Behind the scenes though, people have asked a lot about what realistically, what does life look like having been kind of you being in this phase of deconstruction, me not. And I mean, the reality is we still go to church together as a family, and at this point, liturgies, guys. We view that as something that's healthy for our family and community and all of that. And I know that's not the case for a lot of couples who are deconstructing. They go, one keeps going, one doesn't, but we've continued to go as a family, and at this point, that's been nothing has changed with that. There's just, it's not awkward with our kids. Davey has a lot of questions, and I share with him what I think.
We joke he's probably going to become a pastor.
He probably
You know how
is.
generations can tend to react and kind of swing towards the grandparents. It's my dad was a pastor, so
Runs in the family.
you never know. But Davey would be very cool.
But you're like
A
so
very cool man of
supportive.
God.
Like it's cool how you're always so like supportive of his spiritual interests, and you're
He's
it's
a
like,
child.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just a lot. He has a lot of questions about things.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you know a lot, so you will share like the best of what you know with him. And I think, I mean, at the end of the day, we've talked with y'all kind of like behind the scenes that, I mean, for our kids, I think the best thing we can do for them is to like have like be like an open, honest, like real authentic person. I'm not hiding stuff, not just being like a shiny, happy person or anything like that, or just like trying to look a certain way or look apart. And then for us having like a real relationship, like a real love for one another. I mean, that to me is just like the most securing, like wonderful home to grow up in, And so obviously I want my Christian faith to be a part of that. I would love for that to be passed down to them. But I'm not willing to sacrifice that by forcing them to have like this facade or something they don't really believe in, just like, we have to look this way, this is what my dream has been to be this family,
You represent us, no pressure.
Yeah, like 0%. So
Do you equally share with your children sort of your beliefs, or do you feel like you're, as a couple, still leaning towards a Christian?
Yes.
And well, we don't have like this agreement, like, I'll be the spiritual teacher. It's like neither of us. It's like, I'm not worried. You can tell him whatever you want. Like, don't talk to our son. It's like, we're both his parents. Like, like he needs his father, and you have a lot of really important ideas and thoughts and questions. And you've taught Davey so many things like that are just extremely helpful for him in his development, and just, his already like, his like his own understanding of just like how to regulate and just so many different things, which is amazing. But we don't have, it's not like weird like that with us. It's not like at all. It's neither of us is worried about it. We both just kind of share what we think and believe, and it tends to be a lot more, Davey is like a lot more interested in like spiritual things, and him and I spend the majority of time together because I'm home with him full time. So naturally, as his mom, we're having the most conversations, and he'll just out of nowhere, it's like toddlers, like they're just, you're talking about one thing and all of a sudden they ask this extremely deep question. And you're like, oh, what do you think about this? And then like, oh, look at that. It's just, it's like so in and out. But we have a lot of, like he loves his little like Bible book, and he loves family devotions in the morning, which is like extremely simple and something that Dave started. And like I'm not asking him to do that, but he just does it
every morning.
Morning.
Crown on your head, staff in your hand.
From on high, yes.
Do you feel like the church you go to now is far enough away from sort of the more shame-based approach to Christianity that maybe has like historically been a part of your lives?
I have stuff to say about this, so I want you to say.
Oh no.
What do you think?
Oh, I mean, I think for sure compared to other groups and things we've been a part of, I think for sure. I mean, at least in my own experience, I just think there's a larger variety of people coming from all sorts of different backgrounds that go to this church that make it a more unique experience.
Yeah. Well, where we go now is a lot more historic. So it's less of the, North American evangelicalism that's developed in the last 200 or so years. So in that sense, I think it's more grounded in a more substantiated intellectual tradition. I am wrestling with whether or not it intrinsically carries shame in the heart of the doctrines of at least Protestant, not even Protestant, but Augustinian Christianity, which is the tradition that Lutheranism comes from, is a lot of Augustinian ideas. And Augustine developed ideas around original sin. He developed ideas around a lot of ideas around sexuality, interestingly enough, that I think have come down to today as well. and about the fall in the Garden of Eden and the whole like meaning about that. Um, and so I'm really wrestling with, okay, is this actually Christianity? Was it derailed pretty quickly? Was after Jesus, did Paul derail Christianity? Did Augustine derail Christianity? Is it possible to know what an original Christianity, what is it even a good question to ask, or are we just left with tradition? And is that tradition inseparable from uh, a construction of weakness being necessary? Um, in other words, the priest needs the sinner in order to be a priest. It's like it self-perpetuates. So in that sense, a lot of the trappings of fundamentalism, where you look this way, you don't watch these movies, you don't use this language, all of that is much less
For sure.
emphasized, which is great. And I don't think that's core to Christianity to live in these sorts of ways. I think that's not the real thing. So what I'm trying to ask is this a real thing? Because obviously, if I'm rejecting something, I don't want to reject a fake, knockoff that's 200 years old. I want to reject the real thing. And so then the question is, once you get all the way back to Jesus, first of all, what can we know about who this person actually really was and the claims that he made? And two, the nice things that we'd want to believe, that a lot of us would like to believe, oh, good moral teacher, can we actually do that? Or are we bastardizing a historical person that and sort of like shifting him to be something different that fits a lot more of the sort of modern liberal sensibility? Because I don't want to do that either if that's not historically accurate either. I don't want to claim Jesus and just sort of fit him into my nice little progressive box of ethical teacher if that's not historically accurate. So that's why I'm searching right now. And so that's a lot of words to say. There's just so many layers to getting back to like how we get the faith we get. And so I don't, that's a big way of saying I don't know.
I really appreciate you answering that and going into that. Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, I don't want that fundamentalist mindset or legalistic mindset to be a part of our kids. And I think, in like you've said, in so many ways, that's not really present in the church in ways it has been in past groups and stuff. And so for me, that's just I guess a really great step in the right direction.
Huge, yes.
It's like a pixelated image becoming, slowly, you're like adding pixels that are more clear, kind of trying to fill out more of a picture.
Or the reverse, where I used to think it was so clear and like, why doesn't everyone just see this? Like, it's obvious that the more mature it's just so obvious.
Yeah.
To now it's like, oh, it's a bit more.
There's
a lot more pixels than I knew about.
That's good. Yeah.
But also I do
filling
like
out that
metaphor.
picture.
I am getting a clearer picture because again, just trying to get in as much data as possible.
Yeah.
Without trying to like shoehorn it into a structure of belief that already exists.
Have you ever thought of this as kind of a weird thing to talk about, I guess, but that our exploration is largely a privilege. Like to actually have access to information is like a function of possibly just Western privilege in a lot of ways. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's like to have access to like pick and choose, and it's like secular age privilege. It's like pluralistic privilege.
Freedom heretofore unknown.
Yes,
it is definitely a huge amount of privilege to even be able to like be wrestling with any of this.
Yeah, I feel lucky. Like I can just about any book, any information, podcast. It's like for extremely low cost. I don't have to go to university to learn a lot of this stuff. It's like, how do we have access to this?
Don't even have to drive to a library.
Which is already an innovation.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many ways. Like, it is true. Like for me, being a mom full time, it's when I am constantly listening to stuff, reading stuff, my mind is so occupied with that I find myself like, getting frustrated with my kids or whatever. And it's like, because I only have so much capacity, so I do have to be like careful about how much intake I put in at certain times to make sure that like, well, I have these two humans that I love so much. And like, I like they're so little, like I'm creating the existence that they have. And so what is the most important thing for me in this moment? And in so many ways, it's taking it a lot slower, like reading stuff, listening to stuff, because it takes away from the very things I'm like supposed to be present in. So it's helpful to like, I guess, just have grace and like patience and know like it's a process. And okay, well, if I die tomorrow, like, well, you know, I guess I'll know the truth then. So like, oh well, but you know, it's he also he also digs
Or
in.
not.
He also like, you know, just sometimes has work where he can like listen to things and you know, I don't know, you're just like more dedicated with your time, I guess.
Do you
Whatever.
have more like maybe time or
Uh,
resources to be able to research?
Oh,
Okay.
probably.
But like even like a drive, you know, if you're driving to your
Yeah.
workout in the car, you
Yeah.
could listen to something where I'm
There
listening
is
to
privilege in that.
Garbage,
Yeah.
the garbage song.
garbage song and Davey's favorite. Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
They
but
wanna
it's
be
like,
cats.
Yeah.
it's like they're happy and they're singing, or we're listening to animal stories for kids or whatever, or tiny theologians do one of Davey's favorites. And it's like, that's just the season of life I'm in. And I don't have to be like, oh, well, like you have a 30-minute drive where you can knock out a podcast order. It's like, it isn't, you know, like I just don't stress about that stuff as much. And knowing that there's like times where I'll have more time to do that. I mean, we were just talking yesterday, like it'd be so cool if like the two of us could go away for like the weekend, leave our kids with like family and just like bring a shorter book that we could dig into together and just read it over that weekend. So almost like a power learning session together. And so just coming up with creative ways to get, you know, I don't know, more learning in.
Like maybe to Utah or somewhere like that.
Yeah, on the way, on the
Maybe.
trip.
Yeah, just a quick weekend away.
I am glad that you talked about that because I do think it's worth acknowledging that typically men do enjoy that privilege more of being able to, because they
It's
go to
true.
their jobs and you
Yeah.
can listen to a podcast, you get
Yep.
to drive to work. When you're a mother, especially if you're raised in a culture where you're encouraged to have 8 or 10 kids, or, you know, it's like you just, where is the time where you're like expecting
Yeah.
these women to be listening to bottom and debates
Yeah.
or, you know, it's just
All right,
not-
David, we're going to listen about the Great Schism of 1580. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I only have 2 kids and I feel like it's a lot.
yeah.
But I mean, I find like the more intentional I am with my time, the more like I'm happier anyway. Like when I'm scrolling on social media and just like wasting my time on stupid stuff, it's like I am not satisfied. Like it, you know, was a brainless waste of time in the moment, and it kind of felt good to like relax, but it's like it didn't further me in any way. And so I found like the more intentional I am with my time, the better. But that doesn't take away from the reality that I choose. Like that's the life we choose, and honestly, I like it. Like I like being the one that's, you know, home with the kids, and it, you know, works well for our dynamic and our relationship for you to be the one that like predominantly provides and stuff. But it's just like getting more creative, but it is different, you know, and sometimes it can feel frustrating. Like you don't understand, you know, like you don't, like I can't just do this, you know, but it's like, but I also choose this. So it's like, it's complicated. But it's just like my capacity to run at the same pace as him is just like impossible.
Well, yeah, you're Sam 100% right. That is a privilege that I enjoy. It is to be able to go through some, you know, content on a faster rate. Yeah, 100%. And Bethany is she's an angel. What can I say? She is an angel. And if you want to, you know, rejigger some things in order to go through more content, we can totally have that conversation.
If you
I'll quit my
must
job
take
for you,
that
babe.
trip to Utah.
If you would like, yeah, but I mean, I am so, Bethany helps me so much because I can be clueless about what she goes through just as a woman on a regular basis. And she's kind and compassionate enough to, and courageous enough to share her heart and how she's feeling about what she's dealing with, the kids and all that. And that's incredibly, it's incredibly helpful. And, you know, to the degree that my ego is involved, I don't always like to hear it at first, but it's 100% what I need to hear. It's that kind of self-confrontation of like, I want to know everything that she's doing and every area that she feels what's the word? Like she has less flexibility and would like more. I want to know that and see what we can do to help bring more satisfaction to her.
I mean, I think it's really cool. We have a really great balance. And Dave, I mean, I know other women, their husbands are just, it's the way they function, and he just kind of like, he provides and she does like everything in the home, and that would be really hard for me. So like Dave does so much that makes my life a lot easier. And again, we choose this and this is what we want, and I honestly find so much satisfaction in it. But you know, like he's one of those dads where it's like the moment he gets back from work, the kids are so excited and they're like jumping on his head. He's not like, I need 10 minutes to like unwind or poop or whatever. That would be like hours for the poop. But it's like, it's just, he's very present and like, okay, I'm working, or I'm, you know, it's like he works from home a lot of times. So we normally like, we eat breakfast together every day, and then he normally comes down and we all hang out and eat lunch together, and then we're all together for dinner. So we just have a lot of time together, and our kids are around you a lot because you mostly work from home. And I get like, when Audrey's napping, or you know, I can take Davy and do something, it's like, because you're here, you can, you know, I don't know, I as a woman, I have a lot of support from you as a man, like husband and wife, and I think that's what makes being a mom so joyful, because I'm not doing it on the single moms. I just have like so much, like, I don't know how they do it because it's hard, and I have a very supportive husband.
Well, I just wanted to like to say, down with the patriarchy.
That's
that
the Barbie
out.
Dave we
Get
know.
get that out of here.
Which on that heavy note, we have like 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and
do
we
you
should
need
wrap
to
up.
leave?
Oh yeah. Good.
Also, can I just, so I don't forget, can we talk about the Gnostic Gospels later?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Speaking of the patriarchy.
Honestly, I feel like this has been a really good, like, self-contained
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
And we definitely have like a ton more we can talk about later, but this has been
Yeah, this has been really
it
good.
was the best.
Okay.
I'm so happy you have us up here and we're like willing to do all of this, because this has been the best trip. And
I'm celebrating Bethany. Bethany's doing the most stretching. This is because she's, you know, I think,
She's the longest limbs.
yeah, she's incredibly open heart, and incredibly like open to y'all, open to me. It's like, this doesn't just happen. You have to have like some fucking character.
Yeah, and as I said in I think our last video, like the level of upheaval and work that must have gone into being able to create that space is like, it's impossible to explain to someone who hasn't done it how big of a deal it is.
I mean, I say the exact same thing back. This is like my first time as being like online, having this type of conversation. And it's been so far like such an amazing experience. And the way I think about online and the way I have even started to communicate, like since we've connected, has changed and really opened my eyes to my own, like in the past, like I don't really want to be that way, you know, just the humanity of like who we all are. So it's, I mean,
Self-love. Self-love.
we gotta wrap this up so we can keep our integrity and our commitments.
We are not free if we break our promise to
No,
not to do them.
we
We
gotta
are
get the
slaves.
kids.
We gotta go, but see you soon. Later in this video or a different video.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's not our job to predict the future. Just be here in the now.
Bye. Bye.
Everyone, wait.